What's up everybody, it's your boy Freddy Tamango back again with another video on the YouTube channel where we're going to be talking about one of the questions I get asked about finishing the ACCA. A lot of people who might know what the ACCA is or who might be interested about starting often wonder, is the ACCA worth it? In a day and age where people are questioning if going to university is worth it, if higher education is worth it, is another qualification like the ACCA going to actually be worth it for your everyday individual who's looking to get into accounting or already is in accounting and wanting to progress further? So the first thing to look at is, what is the ACCA? The ACCA isn't just a course, it's not just a university or like a body the way you study. The ACCA is more of a group, a collective of individuals who form a membership and looks after, as a governing body, the entirety of accountants who fall under that umbrella. The point of the membership and the exams is like a gateway into joining this fellowship, joining this governing body, and that's how we get our accreditation. That's how we get our charter. One of the things that we do when we're doing the exams and when we're doing the course is we're showing that we have the knowledge and the ethicality to join these group of people. And that's how we show everyone else and our potential employers, people that we work with, people that we work for, that we hold the necessary requirements to do our job to a good standard. Now that we've covered what the ACCA is and what it does, let's look at how we get into the ACCA, because to get into it, we have to know what we need to do. What most people do is they do an exam. They'll do a course either with a tuition provider such as Kaplan, or they will do an apprenticeship where they might do a tuition course as well. But the main point of the apprenticeship is that you're working full-time at the same time. Some people won't work full-time and will just do the exams. The ACCA itself is made up of 3 distinct levels. You have your applied skills, applied knowledge, and your professional exams. The first stage of your exams is your applied knowledge exams. So the applied knowledge section of the ACCA, which makes up that first beginner layer, is made up of your management accounting, your financial accounting, and your business and technology. These are like the very underpinnings of everything that you're going to learn on it. They're like the basics. This is like the foundational layer where you build up the knowledge that you have in accounting, and that will help you with the later on exams and help build upon that knowledge. What they do is they provide a basic and fundamental knowledge that you need to just do your job. Simple things like working on trial balances, working with debits and credits. This is the kind of information that you're going to be learning, you're going to be practicing, and you're going to be examined on in that first section. Now, the second layer is the applied skills. This is where you get a bit more broad spectrum of knowledge in terms of what the modules you're doing. You do things like taxation, performance management, audit and assurance, corporate business law, financial reporting, and financial management. As you can see, it's quite a broad spectrum that you're learning from. It's not like the ACCA qualification, which is mainly geared towards people who are going to be management accountants. This is more a broad understanding of the basics of accounting, and it gives such a good knowledge of all the areas. But what it does mean is you have to have that knowledge. You have to study quite a broad spectrum, which makes it kind of difficult to get a grip of. Because you're learning so many different aspects, it's hard to really become specialized and become truly knowledgeable about one thing. Now, the final layer of that is the strategic professional exams. Now, this is when you kind of get that more nuanced learning. This is when you do things like your strategic business leadership, your strategic business reporting, and you look at an advanced form and a more in-depth module of some of the things that you did in the applied skills course, such as advanced performance management, advanced financial management, advanced taxation, and advanced audit and assurance. This is where you get a more nuanced look and where you can actually pick 2 of those 4 that I mentioned at the end, the advanced ones, to actually do. You get to cater your own learning towards what you're going to be doing in the future. If you want to go into practice, or if you already are in practice, it's going to be more beneficial for you to do something such as advanced taxation and advanced audit and assurance to help build the knowledge you're going to be using to work with clients and to do audits or do tax exams, and can even help later on if you wanted to do something on top of the ACCA, such as getting your ACCA qualification or your CTA, which is more tax focused. Now, alongside these exams, what you're also going to be needing to do to get that membership into the ACCA, that overarching body, is to also get 3 years of business experience. Now, what this means is you need to show the ACCA when you apply for membership that you have 3 years worth of experience actually working in accounting. There's various criteria that you need to hit to get this. You need to do things like actually work with financial figures, make decisions, and work on audits, work on combining financial statements such as your trial balances, your end of year reports. This is the experience that you need to show. The way you show that is by doing a PER, a professional experience report, where you will get an outside source like your manager, your line manager, or another qualified accountant to show and tell that yes, you have done this experience, you have shown these requirements, and that you do fit the bill of being someone who has that experience and knowledge about accounting in the actual real world, not just your exams. Now here's something that people often run into, is that if you are studying full-time and not working, oftentimes the ACCA can be a bit of a longer journey than someone who is doing it as an apprenticeship where they're working full-time. In that, if you're studying, you have to study all your exams, sit your exams, finish your exams, and once you have done that, you will then go into the workplace, where you'll need to show those years of experience to gain that full membership. But we'll touch on that at the end, when we talk about if this overall thing is actually worth it. But first we need to break it down a little bit more, because now that you know what it takes to get into the ACCA, get a membership, and then finish your exams, what it actually takes to do it, you might be wondering to yourself, why do the ACCA, aside from some of their contemporaries? In the UK, you have something called the ACCA, CTA, as well as CIMA. These are all different types of the same thing. ACCA is similar to the ACCA, except it's geared more towards almost accounting in private practice, where you'll be working at an accounting firm. A lot of the time, the people that do the ACCA are already working in the accounting firms, but doesn't mean that they always have to stay there. People who work in an accounting firm complete the ACCA. When they move into the job market, they can then go for qualified roles. People that do CIMA are normally working in the public sector or the private sector, where you are more working for a particular company, such as working for Google and their accounts department. These people who do the CIMA qualification are mainly geared towards your management accountants, or people who are looking to go into management accounting. Does that mean that there's no chance for cross wires? Oftentimes, your type of qualification will dictate the roles that you can get in the future. If you have a CIMA qualification, it might be harder for you to get a qualified role at an accounting firm over someone who has the ACA qualification, which is much more aligned to what accounting firms do. In that same vein, the ACCA sits as a happy medium between ACA and CIMA, where a lot of the stuff that you learn is a good mix and an amalgamation of the two, and it gives you an opportunity in the job market to be a bit more flexible. People with the ACCA qualification can start in practice, but they can also start in industry. People with the ACCA qualification can move in between, similar like the other roles. However, as an employer, it's easier to see the merits of the ACCA in both fields, because it covers such a wide range of modules. It covers that wide range of information, and depending on those final modules that you pick in your professional exams, you might be more catered towards one side than the other, and this can only help you when you're looking for those jobs. Let's get to the final bit. Is it worth it? Well, that depends, really. I can give you my point of view. It was worth it for me. When I started studying the ACCA, I was working in an accounting firm, but I wanted options. I wanted to have that layer of duality that I could move in between the different layers of accounting, between private, working in accounting firms, to industry, working with other companies. So to that end, I thought the ACCA was going to be really good for me, to give me that foundational knowledge to help me if I ever wanted to move into industry. And that is just what I did. Once I finished my ACCA qualification, I realized that for me the best career path was going to be moving into industry, so I made that move. And having the ACCA qualification meant that I was able to make that move a lot easier, because I was able to show employers that I had the required knowledge set, the experience, and the professionality to work at that role. It also meant that I was able to move across as a qualified accountant and able to get a more senior job role than someone who might not have any exams done. And what that means in the long run, once you do the ACCA, oftentimes you have a higher salary expectation than people who haven't done the ACCA. We can, for example, look at two different job specs. If we were to look at the job spec of a management accountant, or for example, an audit senior, oftentimes we'd find that they say that you need to be qualified to get into these roles. They might even say part qualified. Now, part qualification is a distinction which says that you are most of the way through your exams and almost at the end. However, you are still on that qualification spectrum. You've still started the ACCA. You're just not finished yet. Now, what you'll find is a lot of these roles, they're a higher pay than what you would expect for a job role, which is not asking for any entry requirements at all. So the ACCA is oftentimes a gateway way to those higher level jobs where you're getting more pay. I'm not saying that you can't get those jobs without the qualification. Sometimes jobs will say something saying qualified by experience. And what that basically means is if you can show in your CV, in the interview, that you have the requisite knowledge and experience without having the qualification, then you could be right for the role and you could still be getting the role. The only problem with that in practicality is that the amount of years that you need to show that you have the experience is quite vast in comparison to actually getting the qualification yourself. Because if you think about it this way, when you go to a job interview as someone who is not qualified and has maybe 3 years experience, you are going to be competing for those jobs with someone who also has 3 years experience but also has the full membership to the ACCA. As an employer, which of those two on the face of it would be the better CV, better profile for an employee? It would be the one with a professional qualification. Another aspect of it that also dragged me in was that the ACCA is a globally recognized qualification. Not only is it prevalent in the UK, but is also prevalent in other countries such as India, Canada, parts of the USA, Australia, and the Arab Emirates. What that means is, with this qualification, you can move to other countries and still gain gainful employment as a chartered certified accountant. Whereas for some other qualifications, which are only really UK acknowledged, this means that you have that adaptability, you have that option to go abroad and gain employment wherever you may see fit. It gives you that freedom of movement in your employment. And I know for me particularly, it means that in the role that I'm working now, I'm working for a global company. If I wanted to work in one of the other opcos and the other offices, I have that opportunity to, because I can show that I have a qualification which fits the criteria for a chartered accountant in different countries. And at the bottom of it, that's how you get globally recognized, right? You get globally recognized because the accountants in Canada will say that the qualification meets the requirements that their qualification does in equivalency. It's not saying that one is better than the other, but basically it's saying that if you can do the ACCA, then you've got the requirements that you probably can do the qualification to be certified in Canada. And oftentimes, ACCA gives you options to gain these qualifications in foreign countries in a much more expedited route. You know, where a qualification might take 3 years to do in Canada on top of your ACCA, because you've got the ACCA, and because the Canadian board recognizes the merit of the ACCA, it means that you can get the qualification in Canada by only doing one exam. And that in itself gives you a lot more movement and a lot more fluidity in your future career that I was really searching for when I was first getting into accounting, because I was quite young. I didn't know what I wanted to do in the future. I didn't know where I wanted to be, and doing something which was going to tie me down to one location for the rest of my life was daunting. So doing something at the ACCA meant that I had that ability to move, and that's something that you gain from the ACCA. You might be saying now, Freddie, you're a shill. All you're saying is the good things. What are some of the bad things about doing the ACCA? And don't worry, there are a few negatives about doing the ACCA. One of the biggest negatives is the time commitment that you're putting into getting this qualification. This isn't a small, easy task. As we went over in the exam section, you have to do these exams. And the most important thing, you have to pass these exams. These pass rates, some of them have a sub 50% pass rate, which means that over half of the people taking the exam, they're not passing. They're having to go back, do the exam again, restudy, start again, and they might never finish. You also have to do 3 years of job experience. That means you have to be gainfully employed for 3 years before you can get this qualification. If you're already in a workplace, already working for 3 years, you might be thinking, what is the benefit of me doing this qualification? Why am I putting myself through this arduous task? And there were times that I thought that. As you saw from my previous video, the last few exams were incredibly stressful for me to overcome. I was losing sleep. I was not able to do the things that I enjoyed, like go to the gym, see my friends all the time, because I was committed to studying. Not only would I go to work for, during busy season for 10 hours a day, maybe 12 hours a day, but I was also studying when I got home. I would oftentimes work, come home, study, sleep, wake up, work, study, sleep. You might be thinking, this is a miserable life. This is awful. This sounds terrible. And yes, for the brief 3 years that I did it, it was stressful. It was incredibly arduous. I was going from exam to exam, workday to workday, struggling and toiling. I faced burnout. I faced overworking. There were times I wanted to throw in the towel. There were times that I wanted to quit. There were times that I told myself that I've got the experience. I've got a couple of years in accounting in my belt. Maybe I can move somewhere else Maybe I can slowly work my way up the corporate ladder by moving around, showing that I have good skills and not doing these exams. But I stuck through it and I really pushed myself. And I passed everything first time. And passing everything first time helped me steamroll the exams completely and then put me in a position where when I was moving, I was able to move at a much higher level than where I was because I had that exams finished. And I pushed myself to do it. And I really felt that I'd earned that job raise, going from working at accounting firms part of a team to being a finance manager of an incredibly large company. I felt that I'd earned that because of the hard work that I'd put in while studying for the ACCA. Now let's look at the other biggest point of concern with someone who's looking to get into the ACCA. It's not just the time, it's the money involved. A lot of people who don't do the apprenticeship are paying out of their own pocket to do these exams, to do these courses, which means that you have put in a commitment of financial means. You're paying for these exams, you're paying for all the tuition, all the materials, all the stuff that you need to learn. And then what are you doing? You're taking these exams. You might fail an exam, which means you have to pay again. You might have to pay for revision courses. You're paying an incredibly large amount of money for a potential future benefit. But the problem with any future benefit is that it's only realized in the future. In the current scenario, you're paying out of your pocket. And if you're not working at the same time, or you're working in an unrelated field, you might be limited in the amount of time that you can put into study. I know that someone that I studied with, they were putting themselves through the course and they were working at a warehouse in the evenings. So they would come to me on the tuition courses during the day and they would go to their warehouse in the evening and do their work. And they were paying out of their pocket. Every time we went to a tuition, they were paying out of their pocket. Every time we had a study book, they were paying out of their pocket. Now there are things that you can do to mitigate some of these fees. The very base fees that you'll always have to pay is the exam fees. The exam fees and the student fees at the ACCA, those are universal. You'll always be paying them. Depending on what part of the world you are, these fees might be lower, these fees might be mitigated somewhat, but at the end of the day, you will be paying something. The other big portion of the fees are the tuition fees. These are like your courses that you might pay for at Kaplan, First Intuition, but there are free opportunities there. There are YouTube videos you can watch. There are podcasts you could watch to learn. There are also open tuition, which have a great program with loads of information that you can get. And the ACCA also has a ton of learning material. It has a wealth of past exam questions, which I used a lot when I was revising. I would do them constantly before my exam. The week before my exam, religiously, I would just be doing past exam questions, past exam papers, non-stop. And that's how I got through. And those cost nothing. The ACCA provide you with those materials to hand. You can use these without paying a dime to outside sources, and these are really, really helpful, and oftentimes they can lead to a pass in themselves. If you're someone who's failed before and you're just looking for something that will gain you those extra 10, 15 marks, doing the past paper questions, looking through the mark scheme, seeing what the marker wants to see, looking at these will oftentimes give you the information you need to get those few extra marks you need to pass and get qualified. So there are things to work your way around the cost of the ACCA. The final part of this video is going into your situation. How does the information that I provided for you and my opinion-based experience going to help you? Well, I want you to think of it in terms of there are 5 key aspects in making this decision for yourself: your personal goals, your professional goals, the finances you have available to invest in yourself, the current job market, and the future of finance roles in general. The first part, the personal goals. Is it your goal to become a chartered accountant? Is it your goal to progress in this career path? If you're only doing this accountancy job to help get you into a banker role or working in investments, this might not be the best course for you. If you're working in an accounting firm, but you're wanting to get into tax, you might be more suited for the CTA rather than the ACCA. It has to align with your current personal goals. If it aligns with your personal goals, then we get to point 2, your career goals. What are your career progression goals? If you're looking to progress within an accounting firm, you're going to be hit with a barrier of having a qualification. For a lot of the more senior roles in an accounting firm, you need to be qualified because you need to be someone who can sign off audits. You need to be able to sign off certain things, and to do that you have to have an accreditation, which means you have to do some learning. You have to do your ACCA or ACCA. If you're looking to go into a higher financial position, oftentimes you'll be required to have a qualification. It might be ACCA, it might be something like an MBA. Either way, you're having to have these qualifications. And by the way, the ACCA have a fantastic program where you can work towards an MBA while doing your ACCA, but that is for another video. Now, the third part is then looking at the financial investments that you have. Judge up the costs of the exams. Think to yourself about how much will all the exams cost me per quarter? How much free cash do I have per quarter? How much am I looking to invest in myself this quarter? If, for example, you recognize that every quarter to do an exam, you're going to have to pay £550, but you don't have that free finances at the moment, then maybe it's not right for you to commit. But if you have that spare cash, if you have the cash mobility, then it might be worth investing now to gain the benefit in the future. It's kind of like putting money away in investments. You're putting money aside, not in the hope that you're going to take it out in a week and it's going to be more, but in the hope that in a couple of years down the line, that £500 you invested away is going to turn into £700. A couple of years later, it's going to turn into £2,000. Your money is going to reap you a benefit in kind. And that's what the ACCA can provide if that is what you're wanting. Now, if you judge all three, then the last thing to look at after those three is market trends. What kind of jobs are requiring the ACCA or any other accounting accreditation? What kind of jobs are there in the market now that want these qualifications? How easy it for someone with that qualification to find a job. In certain areas of the world, it might not be beneficial for you to have this qualification. For example, if you're in America, you're looking at the different qualifications you can do and the jobs that you can get with them. You might find that in your state, in fact, the CPA is much more beneficial to getting these jobs than something like the ACCA, which is more global. You might find that if you're working in some places, for example, where I'm from originally, Nepal, having that qualification might not be worth it because the jobs that you're able to get with these qualifications aren't vastly different from the jobs you can get without them. And therefore, it's not beneficial for you to put the time and the money in to get these roles when you could get similar roles without it. So it's up to you to look at the marketplace and see. And I can tell you in the UK, there are plenty of jobs available for people who are qualified. I was speaking to recruiters constantly, and I get recruiters contacting me constantly about jobs and availability and opportunities everywhere that I could move to and I have a chance of getting because of my qualification. That I know that when I didn't have the qualification, they weren't blowing up my phone then. And the fifth and final point of making this decision for yourself is the future of finance, folks, the future of accounting. How do you judge the future of any industry? With the advancement of AI and different technologies, is that going to affect the role of accountants? And this is a very nuanced discussion that there's lots of layers to. But what I can see from my point of view, having worked in practice, worked in industry, worked around the advancement of AI, I can tell you that currently there's still so much scope for accountants. And even going forwards, I'm sure there'll be plenty of scope for accountants, not just because of the fact that AI is coming and going to take all our jobs, but in fact AI is going to come in and help us do our jobs better and more nuanced. We're able to process large swaths of data so much easier so that we as accountants can then interpret that data, put it into different reports, forecasting, budgeting, reviewing. We can do this. And we know that for the legal purposes, things like audits are vastly important and they will always have a human element to them because it's so important that these large companies are audited and their finances are checked. We can see from tons of news articles before the importance of audits and checking the financials of situations, and that having AI is great and having technology is fantastic, but it's there to aid the accountants in their audits, in their decision making. So the role of future accountants is relatively safe. So there you have it. Those are the 5 things you need to look at when you're making your decision on if the ACCA is worth it. Because I can tell you my point of view. It was worth it for me, but for you, that's your decision to make. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe down below for more accounting tips and more fun videos from me. This is me, Freddie, signing out. See you later.